In the future, all the deceased are transferred into a computer game and participate in dangerous missions for a chance to return to reality. Terrifying monsters attack central Tokyo, destroying everything in their path. One of the creatures lifts a car and hurls it straight toward a girl named Reika. Fortunately, her friend Kei Kurno manages to save her just in time, and together with their comrades, they bravely fight the monster. Kurno charges at it with a sword, but the blade breaks. The monster throws Kurno with immense force, damaging his protective suit. Determined to defeat the monster at any cost, Kurno presses on despite Reika's attempts to stop him. He grabs a weapon and shoots at the creature, but it turns out to be stronger than he expected. A few seconds later, the monster finally dies, but Kurno doesn't survive either. Reika and Kurno's teammates vanish as if in a video game. Later, in Osaka, Masaru Kato is waiting for his train in the subway and calls his younger brother Iyumu. The boy is upset that his brother is always late and asks if he remembers what day it is. Kato pretends not to remember, and a hurt Iyumu hangs up. In reality, Kato has already bought a birthday cake and plans to surprise him. Suddenly, chaos erupts at the station. People scatter in all directions, and Kato notices a wounded man on the ground. He rushes to help, but a perpetrator with knives appears from around the corner and stabs Kato multiple times. Suddenly, Kato wakes up in an unfamiliar room, surprised to be alive. Here, he meets Reika and her companions, an elderly man named Yoshikazu Suzuki, a teenager named Joichiro Nishi, and a serious-looking stranger. Suzuki explains that he ended up there after a stroke, and Reika after an accident, but Kato demands to know what's going on. Suzuki warns that it will be hard to believe, but they all ended up there after losing their lives in the real world. Suddenly, the stranger claims that Suzuki told him the same thing, but he thinks it's nonsense and demands the truth. Their conversation is interrupted by music coming from the black sphere known as Gantz. The music stops, and an unfamiliar voice announces that their previous lives are over, and their new ones belong to Gantz. Gantz has a mission for them, to eliminate all monsters and their boss within the given time. Special suits for the mission appear from the sides of the sphere for Kato and the stranger. The man desperately resists the imposed rules and tries to throw his suit out the window, but the glass won't break. Nishi, armed, remarks that guys like this man are always the first to die. These words infuriate the stranger, and he tries to confront the cocky teenager, but Nishi simply points his weapon at him, and the stranger's head explodes. Nishi explains that the man wouldn't have lasted long anyway and would have only gotten in their way. Kato, struggling to recover from the horrifying scene, asks Suzuki who they all are. Suzuki explains that they are stuck in a survival game and points out that Kato must have heard about the monster appearances in Tokyo. They are the ones in black suits who fight the monsters, as reported in the newspapers. Suzuki and Reika also mention that during the last game, they lost many team members, including their leader, Kurno. Their conversation is interrupted by Nishi, who tells Gantz to start the 2-hour countdown. As soon as the timer starts, Nishi begins to disappear, uploading into the game. A shocked Kato quickly changes into his special suit, and soon they all teleport to Osaka. The team finds themselves amidst numerous corpses, and Suzuki wonders why they are in Osaka this time, as their missions were always in Tokyo. Soon, they notice a monster moving straight towards them. Reika, Suzuki, and Nishi aim their weapons at it, while Kato is still in shock. Nishi successfully takes down the monster by blowing its head off, and Kato starts bombarding him with questions. An irritable Nishi points his weapon at Kato, saying he's only a hindrance, but Suzuki asks him not to shoot and promises to explain everything. The team moves through the deserted city, and Suzuki reminds them that their task is to find and eliminate all the monsters in the city within 2 hours, but who devised this and why remains unknown. If they fail, they will lose their lives not only in the real world but also in Gantz's world. Suddenly, their locators detect numerous monsters nearby, closing in from all sides. The quartet starts running while shooting at the smaller creatures. However, a giant head monster proves harder to kill. Kato notices that all his teammates have been captured by monsters. He turns back and aims his weapon at the giant head but misses. The head leaps and lands right on Kato, but fortunately, his high-tech suit saves him. The head prepares to crush the team again, but then the quartet doesn't understand who shot the monster and saved them, but in the distance, they see a large team of local monster hunters with unusual weapons and vehicles. The Osaka team laughs at the composition of the Tokyo squad, which includes a newbie, an old man, a kid, and a girl. Kato notices that one of the players is missing an arm. Suzuki explains that after the mission ends, it will regenerate, as will any other damage. Then, the teams receive another signal about approaching monsters. The leader of the Osaka team tells the Tokyo Quartet to stay out of the fight, declaring that they will handle everything themselves. The Osaka team successfully annihilates dozens of diverse monsters, and Kato notices that they seem to enjoy the process. Suddenly, a more powerful serpent-like monster with huge claws appears, slicing one of the fighters into pieces. The leader, riding an unusual bike, comments that such a monster is worth many points and declares that he wants to defeat it personally. Kato, observing the Osaka team's triumph, asks Suzuki where they got such weapons and vehicles. Suzuki explains that by earning 100 points, players can choose any weapon. After each mission, they all return to their rooms where Gantz tallies the points. Players who reach 100 points can choose one of 3 rewards: a very powerful weapon, the revival of a fallen comrade, or an exit from the game back to normal life. Meanwhile, Nishi disappears, intending to wait and finish off the main monster, which is worth a lot of points. At that moment, Kato notices a group of people fleeing from monsters. He rushes to help them, but Suzuki and Reika stop him, noting that they are too weak without their leader to help anyone. Suzuki adds that it's better for them to stay hidden while the Osaka team destroys all the monsters. However, Kato is determined not to hide and is ready to fight no matter what. Realizing that Kato won't be stopped, Suzuki gives him some coins so he can call his family from a phone booth and asks him to survive at any cost. Soon, Kato finds a phone and calls his brother Ayumu. Ayumu, annoyed, asks where Kato has been, and Kato explains that he was urgently called to work but promises to return. After the conversation, Kato notices a family fleeing from a cyclops with a huge head. Overcoming his fear, Kato charges at the monster, but it knocks the weapon out of his hands. Kato then starts hitting it with his fists, amazed at the strength the suit gives him. He manages to retrieve his weapon, but the cyclops grabs Kato by the leg. Fortunately, Kato is able to shoot it right in the face. Freed from the monster's jaws, Kato notices a girl from the Osaka team named Onzu Yamasaki. She says she's 23 and wants to know more about Kato. When she finds out he's only 17, she seems a bit disappointed but then asks why he decided to save that family when there was no benefit for him. Kato doesn't understand why helping selflessly is seen as abnormal. Initially, Yamasaki thinks Kato is just trying to play the hero. However, she soon realizes he genuinely wants to risk his own life for others and mentions seeing an elderly couple and a child nearby. Terrified people are trying to hide from a giant monster, and Kato arrives just in time to help them. At first, Yamasaki refuses to fight the monster, fearing for her life, but she eventually decides to assist Kato, who has clearly impressed her. Together, they defeat the terrifying giant and save the shocked people. Yamasaki can't understand how Kato still wants to help people after such a tough encounter, but Kato is convinced that he has no other choice. Yamasaki asks about his parents, who raised such a noble son. Kato explains that his father was a firefighter, but both his parents died in a car accident when he was young. Now he has to work and raise his 10-year-old brother alone. Yamasaki mentions that they have something in common. She is raising a 3-year-old son, which means neither of them can give up because of those who depend on them. Meanwhile, Ayumu is having dinner alone and watching the news about the monster invasion. The TV is reporting on his brother's heroism, but Ayumu is washing dishes and misses it. Yamasaki and Kato then notice the leaders of the Osaka group, and Yamasaki explains that the bald guy with the sword is named George, who has completed the game and earned 100 points 3 times. The tall guy is Nobuo, who has 4 bonuses, but the best player is Hachiro Oka, a 7-time champion who always operates stealthily and doesn't collaborate with the others. At the same time, Suzuki and Reika are waiting for Kato to return and regret that they lack the strength to help others. Suddenly, their sensors start showing the approach of another monster. In that instant, a giant bull-headed creature emerges from the water, and Oka arrives in his massive super armor to assist the players. Meanwhile, George and Nobuo, unaware of the ongoing events, discuss the boss monster that could earn them 100 points if they defeat it. Nobuo claims that Oka once killed such a boss and received his bonuses, being the only survivor from his team. Suddenly, local military forces discover Reika and Suzuki, aiming their weapons at them and demanding to know who they work for. Suzuki tries to explain that they are not enemies and steps forward, but the soldiers open fire, seriously wounding him. At this moment, Kato joins the group and begs the soldiers not to shoot. Then, a new red-faced monster with wings advances on the soldiers. They fire at it, but their regular weapons are ineffective against the creature. The monster kills all the soldiers and then turns its attention to the players. Yamasaki distracts the monster, allowing Kato to shoot a net at it, but the monster is too strong and soon breaks free. George and Nobuo arrive to help the players, but even their powerful weapons can't defeat this monster. Nobuo, overconfident, claims he will handle the monster, hoping to earn another 100 points. However, the creature grabs him and slams him into the ground repeatedly. In a last-ditch effort, Nobuo manages to shoot the monster's head at point-blank range, causing it to explode, but he does not survive either. Soon, a new short bald monster appears behind the players, and George immediately realizes this is the boss. George charges at it with his sword, slicing it into pieces, but each part grows into a new monster, and they quickly merge back into one entity. George attacks it again and again, but the boss skillfully dodges all his strikes. George manages to grab it with his hands, but the monster begins transforming into numerous naked women. They then merge into one giant creature and engulf George. Yamasaki starts to panic as they've lost their two best players. Kato realizes that besides him, no one else can defeat the boss, and he steps into the fight. Yamasaki reminds him that his brother is waiting at home and he needs to survive, but Kato points out that he also needs to defeat the monster to return home. Alone, Kato struggles to handle the boss, and then Reika and Yamasaki come to his aid. Finally, a barrage of shots explodes the monster's head, but it remains alive and continues to attack. Soon, the boss with a new head captures Kato and intends to swallow him, but Nishi appears from invisibility, destroying the boss's body with several explosions. All that remains of the monster is a huge red puddle, and Nishi celebrates the victory, but soon the puddle begins to bubble, and the boss emerges from it in a new terrifying form. Nishi disappears again, but the boss detects his location and pulls him out of invisibility, depriving him of his hand in the process. The team decides to escape by jumping into the water, while Oka in his incredible suit continues to fight the huge monster. Despite his powerful equipment and weapons, the monster gains the upper hand over Oka. However, the legendary fighter refuses to give up, leaving his suit behind and jumping onto the monster's head, relentlessly attacking it with his sword. Finally, Oka defeats the monster, but now the boss approaches. Returning to his giant suit, Oka charges straight at the boss, with Kato rushing to help, hoping to defeat the monster quickly to heal Suzuki's and Nishi's wounds. Oka uses all his super abilities and seemingly defeats the boss. Kato and the others approach Oka, admiring his work, but he declares that the battle isn't over yet. The boss repeatedly regenerates and recovers, while Oka's suit gradually falls apart. Eventually, Oka creates a smoke screen, and at that moment, the boss delivers a devastating blow to his suit. Fortunately, Oka discreetly escapes from the suit and sneaks up behind the boss, delivering an unexpected sword strike to its back. Kato asks if the boss is finally destroyed, but Oka declares that he's still alive. However, the boss is vulnerable to such unexpected attacks, so they can try to finish him off themselves. Kato doesn't understand why Oka won't deliver the final blow himself, but Oka says it's too risky. Kato decides to take the opportunity and try to kill the boss before he regains strength. But as Kato swings his sword at him, a small black sphere bursts out from the monster's abdomen. Suddenly, it splits into numerous dangerous particles, but Suzuki sacrifices herself to shield Kato with her body, knowing his brother is waiting for him at home. Meanwhile, the boss transforms into an even more terrifying monster resembling a skeleton. Kato wants to confront him, but the boss is more interested in Oka and goes after him. However, Kato fears that Oka won't be able to handle the monster and decides to finish it himself. Together with Reika and Yamasaki, they decide on their next move. Kato suggests he'll find and distract the monster, while Reika and Yamasaki should unexpectedly attack him from a distance. Before Kato sets off to find the monster, Yamasaki asks him to promise that if they survive and make it back to the real world, they'll all live together with his brother and her son. The request surprises Kato a little, but he agrees nonetheless. Yamasaki runs to take her position, and at that moment, a powerful explosion occurs. Soon, the boss is right behind Kato. When he turns around, he sees the monster holding Oka's head in its hands. Kato tries to distract the monster by questioning why they're destroying each other, to which the monster replies that it's the will of the gods, and he is one of them. At that moment, the women open fire on the monster. It seems like the monster is caught off guard, but suddenly eyes appear in its eye sockets, firing lasers randomly. Kato rushes at the monster to finish it off, but he gets hit by a laser and loses both legs, while Reika sustains a serious shoulder injury. Struggling, Kato tries to reach his weapon with his last strength, but Yamasaki beats him to it and charges straight at the monster, which cuts her in half with its lasers. The boss is about to finish off Kato when suddenly Nishi appears behind him. Unfortunately, Nishi fails to defeat the boss and loses his second hand. However, Kato gathers enough strength to grab a more powerful weapon and finally destroy the monster. The battle ends, and Kato crawls over to Yamasaki, taking her hand. Then, all surviving players teleport back to the room 9 minutes before the allotted time ends. All their injuries vanish, and even Suzuki, who protected Kato, fully recovers. Kato appears later than the others, and Reika and Suzuki rejoice that he managed to survive after all. Then Gantz starts tallying up the players' scores. Reika gets 6 points, Suzuki 2, and Nishi 12. Kato, however, earns a record-breaking 100 points for defeating the boss. Gantz offers 3 bonus choices: a weapon, reviving a comrade, or freedom. Suzuki and Reika opt for freedom and to forget everything since Kato has a brother waiting in his former life. To everyone's surprise, Kato chooses not freedom, but to revive Yamasaki, who immediately wakes up in another room. Suzuki doesn't understand why he didn't return to his brother, and Kato states that he promised Yamasaki they would be together. Then Kato discovers they can leave the room between tasks and rushes to his brother. Suzuki and Reika recall how he once played a game and earned 100 points. Back then, he chose freedom, and his memories were erased. Reika asks why Suzuki didn't tell him about it, but Suzuki explains that Kato wouldn't have rested until he revived all fallen comrades, including Kurano. Suzuki notices that Kato remains just as selfless, and Reika vows to become like him and one day resurrect Kurano. What would you do in the main character's place? Return to freedom or continue fighting and helping your comrades? Share your thoughts in the comments below, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.